Sandra Cooper, welcome to Profile.
Thank you, Archie.
And thank you for, agreeing to do this interview with us. A beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. I don't know if we'll have the time to say all of it, but so many beautiful points that I want to touch on. And to begin by placing you for a lot of Jamaicans who might not know your story. So a Jamaican facilitator and executive coach and a life coach. You have spent a lot of your work is about helping people and groups communicate better, think clearly, and move forward together. And you've recently received an international professional honor recognizing your long contribution to this work. You've also published a new book, and we'll get to talk about that. But I want to step back for a moment and talk a little bit about your background and the growing up, so that you can, share that story.
Okay, what would you like to know?
Specifically, you grew up in Kingston in a middle-class Jamaican household.
Yes.
What was that household like?
I was one of 5, and I lived with my mom and dad. Well, my dad passed away when I was 8.
Yes.
And my youngest sister was 4 months old, so my mom had to navigate that period of her life, being a single mother, losing her husband, our father, with 5 children to take care of. We had our grandmother who lived with us, and she really played a very important role in our lives. And, of course, all of the values, don't sit with your hands on the table, swallow your food. We have to say our prayers at night and so on. And those values really helped to shape me in those early years.
You said that your father died when you were 8 years old. Did you fully grasp that then? What was that time like?
I am not sure. All I know is I heard, it was a Monday, December 16th, 1963, and I heard that Daddy passed away. He was in hospital. I didn't know what. I just was very present to his illness. And then there was his funeral at the time. And I looked at him and I said to my cousin, "Why does he look so blue?" Yes. And then we weren't allowed to leave the car to go to the graveside. And then the next thing, Daddy just wasn't there. It was a disconnect in terms of the whole process. And then little fast forward, I'm now in high school. And, girls had their fathers dropping them to school, and I had no father, and I had to walk. So there was a sense of lack, being nurtured from as early as 10, 11, 12 years old into my early teenage years, that there was no father. My mother remarried, so my stepfather was in the picture, but he really was more of a background presence rather than an active, participating role in my life.
And you had such a relationship with your father to begin with, going to Hope Gardens?
Yes, because he took us for drives. We went on trips to the country. He built things. He made toys. He built a dollhouse in the garden, which we played in. And of course, his discipline was phenomenal. I mean, it was a look that would determine our obedience to his authority. Yeah, I would say yes, I did have a great relationship with him.
No, let's talk a little bit about what you were as a child. And in your book, you talk about this to an extent. You say you were always believed in superheroes, were a little bit, friendly, obviously, but shy. How would you characterize yourself?
I was an avid reader from very early. And so it was comic books, and later on Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys novels that really kept my imagination going. And so, it was a nice place to, in which to retreat.
How did this manifest in terms of then moving on to the school system, what you're like?
Well, at school, it was, part of the narrative is study and work hard. And so I did that. I studied and I worked hard. And it was one way to get attention, because I did well in school. And I would say, I would hear the accolades coming from my mother and the aunties and so on, that, Sandra is a bright little girl. And so I just, as I said in those days, I just buckled down and did my work. And did well at the time GC O-levels. Didn't go on to A-levels because I went and I got married. shortly afterwards.
And this changed the trajectory of your life. The school you're talking about, by the way, you're talking about St. Cecilia Prep and
St. Cecilia Prep, which no longer exists, and which, by the way, generated a lot of spelling bee champions back in the day. I think I came, like, I was like, one person beat me to get into that finals, that spelling bee thing. But after St. Cecilia, I got a common entrance pass to St. Andrew. And that was really, really very nurturing to me as a young person, as a young female, growing up in Kingston at the time.
What was nurturing about St. Andrew?
There was such a variety of options. I mean, I was very arts-oriented, so I did well in craft and in art and music. We have what we call the Garth Shore competition, where girls are, we do sewing, we model, we present our jams and pastries and cakes and craft items and artwork. And I would have like 10, 15 entries. And we had not only first, second, and third, but double first and triple first.
Wow. And
I got numerous triple firsts because I was just very creative and artistic. You know, and later on at university, I got involved in dance as a member of the UWI Dance Society, and later on the Jamaica Musical Theatre Company. So that part of me has been very, very strong as an artist, as a performer. Yeah.
But before you went off to university, the first decision was, you said you got married.
Yeah, I got married because it just happened. And I married into Fab Five because my late ex-husband was the keyboard player in Fab Five. Grubb Cooper is my brother-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you got married, and that changed the trajectory of your life. But
yes.
But we have to take a break before we tell the rest of the story. So we're going to take our first break on Profile. We're speaking with Global Lifetime Honor recipient and leading voice in leadership development, author and facilitator Sandra Cooper. And we're back with you after these messages.